The snow bit into Robert's knees like 1,000 tiny knives, each flake a silent accusation from the heavens his mother swore by. At 17, in the frozen grip of a Michigan winter, he knelt there on the cracked driveway of their modest ranch house, the world blurring through tears that froze mid-fall on his lashes. "Pray for forgiveness, boy," she'd hissed, her voice cracking the night like thunder, "or God will leave you out here to rot with the sinners." He'd whispered confessions into the Winleys about boys at school, stolen glances in the locker room that twisted his gut with equal parts shame and fire, but the cold seeped deeper than any words could reach. Hours blurred into a numb haze, his fingers purpled claws digging into the slush, until dawn's gray light finally coaxed her back to the door. She yanked him inside by his collar, his body collapsing like a puppet with cut strings. And that was the last night he called her home. Robert fled 2 weeks later, backpack slung over one shoulder, hitchhiking south toward the hazy promise of Chicago's lights, where whispers of freedom echoed in the underground bars he'd read about in dog-eared library books. The road unspooled like a vein, pumping him away from the Bible verses etched into his skull and toward a pulse he could finally claim as his own. In the Windy City, survival was a jagged edge Robert learned to balance on quick. He crashed on the sagging couch of a dingy Ukrainian immigrant's apartment in Uptown, trading dishwashing shifts at a greasy diner for a corner that smelled of cabbage and regret. Nights blurred into fevered dreams of snow and sermons. But days brought the grind, slinging plates to truckers who leered too long, pocketing tips in a coffee can under his mattress. At 19, he looked like any other kid dodging the draft of adulthood, lean frame from skipped meals, brown hair perpetually tousled, blue eyes sharp with the wariness of someone who'd knelt too long in the cold. But beneath it, a quiet rage simmered, fueling late-night walks along Lake Michigan's shore, where the waves crashed like unanswered prayers. It was on one such walk, under a sky bruised purple by autumn dusk, that Robert first tasted the electric hum of possibility. The bar was called the Blue Parrot, a nondescript dive wedged between a pawn shop and a laundromat, its neon sign flickering like a hesitant heartbeat. He'd wandered in on a dare from a coworker, nursing a watered-down beer at the scarred oak counter, eyes darting to the couples swaying on the makeshift dance floor, men with men, unapologetic in their tangled limbs and shared breaths. The air thrummed with Patsy Cline covers and laughter that cut through the smoke. And for the first time, Robert felt the knot in his chest loosen. Just a fraction. That's when Alex slid onto the stool beside him, all easy confidence and sun-kissed skin from summers he probably spent surfing California waves. 22. With tousled black curls that begged to be touched and hazel eyes that sparkled like contraband secrets, Alex ordered 2 shots of whiskey and pushed one Robert's way without a word. "You look like you could use a thaw," he said, voice low and warm, laced with that West Coast drawl that made Robert's pulse stutter. They talked for hours about nothing and everything, Alex's stories of foster homes and stolen kisses pulling Robert's guarded truths to the surface like weeds from cracked soil. By closing time, as the bartender hollered last call, Alex's hand brushed Robert's under the bar, a spark that ignited something dormant and fierce. Their first kiss happened in the alley behind the bar, rain-slicked cobblestones underfoot, the downpour masking the hitch in Robert's breath. Alex tasted like whiskey and salt, his fingers threading through Robert's damp hair with a gentleness that shattered the walls Robert had built from Michigan ice. "I've got you," Alex murmured against his lips. And in that moment, Robert believed in the heat of bodies pressed close, in the way Alex's laugh chased shadows from forgotten corners. They tumbled into Alex's tiny studio in Wicker Park, a space cluttered with vinyl records and half-finished canvases, where Robert learned the language of touch, slow explorations in the gray light of dawn, whispers that mapped vulnerabilities like constellations. Love bloomed fierce and fragile in those early months. A rebellion against the ghosts Robert carried. Alex was a graphic designer by day, sketching logos for indie bands. His optimism a balm to Robert's scars. They'd wander Lincoln Park hand in hand on Sundays, stealing kisses under ancient oaks, ignoring the sideways glances from joggers who clutched their judgments like rosaries. Robert found work at a bookstore in Boys Town, shelving queer lit that mirrored his hidden Aix-Audrey lord. James Baldwin words that validated the boy who'd knelt in snow for daring to feel. Evenings were theirs, cooking pasta in mismatched pots, dancing to Nina Simone until the neighbors banged on the walls, collapsing into bed where Alex's arms became the only sanctuary Robert craved. But the past was a shadow that lengthened with every milestone. When Robert turned 21, Alex surprised him with tickets to a drag show at a legendary Andersonville club. The air electric with sequins and sass. Amid the cheers and glitter, Robert felt whole until a phone call shattered the illusion. The number was unlisted, but the voice on the other end was etched in his bones, his mother, Margaret. Her tone brittle as frost. "Your aunt's dying," she said flatly. "No hello. No warmth. She asks for you. Don't make me beg." Robert's hand trembled on the receiver, Alex's concerned eyes searching his from across the room. He hung up without a word, the weight of unspoken winters crashing back. The drive north to Traverse City was a gauntlet of memories. The interstate a ribbon tying him to the boy he'd buried. Alex came along, his presence a steady anchor as they navigated the Tulane roads flanked by fiery maples. Margaret's house hadn't changed, same peeling blue siding, same cross looming over the mantel like a sentinel. She met them at the door, 60 now but unbowed. Her face a map of lines carved by unyielding faith and unspoken regrets. Her eyes flicked over Alex with disdain masked as politeness. But she said nothing, ushering them to the hospice bed where Aunt Clara lay, frail as tissue paper, her breaths a rattle of unfinished stories. Clara had always been the soft edge to Margaret's blade, sneaking Robert comic books and ice cream cones, winking at his boyish crushes without judgment. In her final days, she gripped his hand, eyes milky but sharp. "Love who you love, Robbie," she whispered, her voice a thread. "Don't let the cold win." Margaret hovered in the doorway, lips pursed, but Robert saw the crack the way her fingers twisted the hem of her apron, a telltale sign of the storm brewing beneath. Alex sat quietly, his thumb tracing circles on Robert's knee, a silent vow amid the beeps of machines and the scent of antiseptic regret. The funeral was a somber affair in the white-steepled church of Robert's childhood, hymns droning like accusations. Afterward, at the potluck in the fellowship hall, old neighbors clapped him on the back, murmuring about how grown you are, their eyes sliding to Alex with veiled curiosity. Margaret cornered him by the Jell-O salads, her voice a hiss. "This phase of yours, it's killing your father in his grave." Robert's father had passed 5 years back, felled by a heart attack, but the barb landed true, reopening wounds sealed with time. "It's not a phase, Mom," he said, voice steady despite the quake in his chest. "It's me. And Alex. He's the best part." She turned away, but not before he saw the flicker hurt, or perhaps the ghost of her own buried longings. Back in Chicago, the rift lingered like a bruise. Robert threw himself into work, curating a pride reading series at the bookstore that drew crowds hungry for stories of survival. Alex's designs graced the event posters, bold rainbows slashing through grayscale fears. Their love deepened in the quiet ways, lazy mornings with coffee and crosswords, surprise picnics by the river where Alex sketched Robert's profile against the skyline. But nights brought dreams of snow, waking Robert in sweats, Alex's arms pulling him close with murmured reassurances. "We're building something unbreakable," he'd say, and Robert clung to that. Even as letters from Margaret piled unopened on the dresser, please wrapped in scripture. Each envelope a barb. By 25, Robert had carved a niche as an advocate, speaking at community centers about the intersections of faith and queerness, his voice gaining the timbre of earned wisdom. Alex proposed on a crisp October eve, down on one knee in the same alley where their story began, ring glinting under sodium lights. "Marry me, and let's melt every damn winter together," he said, tears mixing with rain on his lashes. Robert said yes with a laugh that echoed freedom. Their wedding a vibrant affair in a Logan Square loft, drag queens as officiants. Toasts laced with bawdy humor. Vows exchanged under a canopy of fairy lights. Yet the unopened letters gnawed. A quiet erosion. When the invitation arrived for Robert's 30th birthday, a formal card from Margaret, postmarked Traverse City, with a single line, "Come home, please." He felt the pull, inexorable as tide. Alex squeezed his hand over breakfast. "Whatever you decide, I'm there. But don't go alone." They drove north again, the landscape shifting from urban sprawl to rural hush, leaves carpeting the roads in gold and crimson. Margaret's house felt smaller now, dwarfed by the man Robert had become, his frame filled out by years of shared meals and unshakable love. She'd aged into fragility, osteoporosis curving her spine, but her eyes still held that steel. Overweak tea in the living room. Relics of his childhood scattered like accusations, his old baseball glove. A faded family portrait. She broached it haltingly. "I was wrong. About the snow. About you." The words hung, brittle, and Robert's throat tightened, the boy in him warring with the man. "Why now?" he asked, voice raw. "After all this time." She looked away, fingers tracing the cross necklace. Clara's words. "And seeing you. Happy. With him." Alex sat silent, a pillar of quiet strength, his hand finding Robert's under the table. Forgiveness didn't come in a rush. It trickled, tentative as spring melt. They stayed a week, mending in fits and starched, shared meals where laughter pierced the silence. Walks by the lake where Margaret admitted her own youth. A forbidden crush on a neighbor girl crushed under church doctrine. "I thought it was sin," she confessed one evening, voice breaking. "But it's just us. Flawed and reaching." Robert listened. The cold gift he'd planeta, frozen replica of that snowy night, sculpted in ice for her doorstep, symbolizing the chill she'd inflicted, melting unspoken in his mind. Instead, he offered presents. The warmth of stories swapped over pie. On their last night, as snow flurried soft outside, ironic, almost merciful, Robert knelt again, but by choice, wrapping his arms around her frail form. "I forgive you, Mom. Not for you. For me." She wept then, sobs muffled in his shoulder, the ice between them cracking at last. Alex watched from the doorway, eyes shining with pride, as the three of them stood together, a fragile triad forged in fire and frost. Years layered on, and Robert's life unfurled like a banner, a nonprofit launched from his advocacy work, helping queer youth escape the shadows of rejection. Alex's art gallery buzzing with exhibits on love's many faces. Their adopted daughter, Lila, a whirlwind of curls and questions at 5, filling their Wicker Park home with chaos and joy. Visits to Traverse City became ritual. Margaret softening into a grandmother who baked lopsided cookies and read bedtime stories with a wink at Lila's budding tomboy spirit. The true gift came on a crystalline December morning, Robert's 40th birthday, when he arrived at Margaret's with a package wrapped in silver paper. Cool to the touch. She unwrapped it slowly, arthritic hands trembling, revealing a small glass globe inside. A miniature scene of a boy kneeling in snow. But beside him, a figure extended a hand, pulling him up into sunlight. No cold rebuke, but a mirror to the thaw they'd earned. "It's us," Robert said simply, his voice thick. "The end of the freeze." Margaret held it to the light, tears refracting like prisms. "My boy," she whispered, "you gave me back my heart." And in that moment, under the Michigan sky vast and forgiving, Robert knew the real miracle, love. Once knelt to an agony, now stood tall, wrapping them all in its unyielding warmth. The globe caught the winter sun as Margaret placed it on her mantle, right beside the family photo now including Alex and Lila, a testament to bridges rebuilt from splinters. Robert watched her, the lines of her face softened by something akin to peace, and felt the final shard of that long-ago night dissolve. Driving back to Chicago with Alex's hand in his, the highway hummed with possibility. Lila chattering from the back seat about snowmen and secrets. Life, Robert thought, was the ultimate redemption, a tapestry woven from threads of pain and perseverance. Each not a story worth telling. But stories, like snowfalls, have their tempests. 6 months later, the call came at dawn, shattering the fragile idyll. Margaret's voice, frail over the line, "Robbie, it's bad. The doctors say. Not long. Cancer. Aggressive and unyielding. The same beast that had claimed Clara." Robert booked the first flight, Alex rearranging his schedule without question. Lila shuttled to a neighbor with promises of souvenirs. The airport blurred in a haze of coffee and clenched jaws. Robert's mind replaying every half-minted moment, the tea confessions, the cookie-baking afternoons as if tallying debts against Grace. Traverse City greeted them with a deceptive spring bloom, cherry blossoms defiant against the chill wind off Lake Michigan. Margaret lay in her bed, the room thick with the scent of lilacs and morphine. Her once stern frame shrunken to bones beneath the quilt. "You came," she murmured, eyes fluttering open, locking on Robert with a clarity that pierced. He knelt beside her voluntarily, as always now taking her hand. "It's skin paper thin. Always. Mom. We're family." Alex hovered near, arranging pillows with quiet efficiency, his presence a balm that needed no words. The days stretched into a vigil of vigils, punctuated by hospital runs and hushed conversations. Margaret rallied in fits, sharing tales from her youth she'd buried deep, a summer romance with a painter in Detroit, cut short by her father's belt and her mother's tears. The loneliness of a marriage built on duty, not desire. The fear that had made her lash out at the son who mirrored her hidden self. "I saw myself in you," she admitted one afternoon, sunlight slanting through lace curtains. "And I hated it. Thought I could pray it out of us both." Robert listened, tears tracing familiar paths, but this time warmed by empathy, not ice. Alex became the glue, ferrying meals from local diners, entertaining Margaret with sketches of Lila as a superhero, Kate billowing in cartoon winds. "She's got your fire," he'd say, and Margaret would chuckle, a sound rusty but real. In those stolen moments, Robert saw the full arc, from the boy frozen in judgment to the man thawing a lineage of silence. Friends from Robert's nonprofit arrived in waves, bearing books and balloons, turning the sick room into a circle of stories where queer voices wove with straight-laced ones, proving love's spectrum knows no borders. As summer crested, Margaret slipped away gently, her last breath a sigh released after decades of holding. The funeral was different, this Timino droning hymns, but a backyard gathering under string lights, neighbors mingling with city transplants, toasts raised to a woman who'd learned, late but truly, the grace of letting go. Robert scattered her ashes by the lake at sunset, Alex's arm around his waist, Lila clutching a fistful of petals. "Grandma's swimming with the fish now," she declared, and they laughed through tears. the sound carrying over the water like a benediction. Grief settled like lake fog, mutable and lingering. But Robert channeled it into action. He expanded the nonprofit, launching thaw grants for queer youth in rural pockets like Traverse City Scholarships. Therapy. Safe houses funded by Alex's art auctions and corporate donors softened by their story. Lila grew, her questions probing deeper. Why did Grandma make you kneel? Daddy. Robert answered honestly. Age-appropriate truths laced with love's triumph, teaching her that families bend but don't break when rooted in understanding. Years folded forward. Robert at 45, silver threading his brown hair, lines of laughter etching his blue eyes. Alex, ever the dreamer, opened a second gallery focused on queer artists from the heartland, bridging coasts with canvases of raw emotion. Their home buzzed with Lila's teen rebellion's dyed hair streaks. First crushes announced with dramatic flair-in dinner tables alive with debates on everything from politics to playlists. Visits to the lake house, now a family retreat, became annual pilgrimages, where Robert would stand on the shore, globe in pocket, whispering thanks to the waves. One crisp autumn eve, as leaves pirouette in golden descent, Robert received an unexpected package postmarked from a distant cousin, containing Margaret's journals, yellowed pages spilling secrets like confetti. Entries from his childhood chronicled her turmoil. Saw Robbie with that neighbor boy today. God forgive my thoughts. Later ones. Post-reconciliation, my son teaches me mercy. Praise be. Reading by lamplight. Alex curled beside him. Robert wept not for loss, but for the quiet victory of a love that outlasted the cold. The gift he'd once envisioned cold and cutting had evolved into something warmer, a legacy of open doors, of kneeling not in penance, but in gratitude. In the heart of America, where winters rage and springs insist, Robert's story rippled outward, a reminder that even the deepest freezes yield to the sun of persistent, unapologetic hearts. With the journals tucked into a bedside drawer like sacred texts, Robert dove deeper into his work, the nonprofit swelling to chapters across the Midwest. Board meetings in repurposed warehouses buzzed with passion young activists with fresh tattoos and firebrand speeches. Elders sharing war stories from Stonewall's echo. Robert moderated with the steady hand of experience, his voice a bridge between generations, reminding them that progress was a marathon paved with personal thaws. Alex's contributions were the spark, murals adorning safe house walls, depicting figures emerging from ice into bloom, colors vivid against gray concrete. Lila, at 15, inherited the blend Robert's introspection laced with Alex's flair, joining the nonprofit as a junior volunteer, organizing pride picnics that drew hundreds. Her first girlfriend, a sharp-witted poet named Jordan, became a fixture at family dinners. Her verses recited over dessert with a shy grin that melted Robert's heart. "You've built this," Alex said one night, as laughter echoed from the kitchen. "A world where she doesn't have to kneel." Robert pulled him close. The kiss a seal on vows renewed in the quiet of middle age. Yet shadows lingered, not from Margaret's ghost, but from broader storms. The political winds shifted, headlines screaming of rollback rights, protests flaring in city squares. Robert found himself on panels, microphone in hand, countering fear with facts, his Michigan accent grounding arguments in lived truth. A viral clip of his speech, "We knelt in snow, in closets, in silence, but we rise together," garnered millions of views. Invitations flooding in from coasts to heartland. Alex captured it in a portrait series. Robert's face a mosaic of resolve and tenderness, exhibited in D.C. to sold-out crowds. Through it all, romance simmered, evolved. Anniversaries marked with private rituals, recreating that rainy alley kiss, now under umbrellas of their own making. Weekends at the lake house, where Robert taught Lila to skip stones. Alex grilling fish with exaggerated flair. Intimacy deepened. Bodies familiar, yet ever discovering. Whispers in the dark affirming the miracle of endurance. "You're my thaw," Robert murmured once, tracing Alex's jaw. And the hazel eyes that met his held galaxies of shared survival. A crisis hit when Lila, 17 now, faced her own trial, a school board banning queer books. Her poetry slammed as inappropriate. The backlash online was vicious. Trolls dredging Robert's past for ammunition. He shielded her. But the echo of old judgments stung, propelling a lawsuit that made national news. Victory came hard-won. Books reinstated. But the toll was real sleepless nights. Alex's arms a refuge as Robert raged against cycles unbroken. Healing came in community. A rally in Boys Town where Lila read her work to thunderous applause. Jordan's hand in hers a mirror to Robert's youth. Margaret's globe, now displayed in the nonprofit's office, watched over it all. A talisman of transformation. Robert spoke at the event. Voice steady, "My mother made me kneel, but love made me stand. For Lila. For you. We fight not from cold, but from fire." As autumn waned into winter's hush, Robert reflected on the arc from frozen boy to patriarch of warmth. The cold gift, once a vengeful dream, had become a legacy of generosity, scholarships in Margaret's name, journals donated to archives, stories told to remind that redemption is a choice, daily and defiant. In America's vast, varied heart, where snow falls impartial and springs rise relentless, Robert's life affirmed the human capacity for Chonhayan narrative, not of endings, but of endless, empathetic beginnings. Winter's grip tightened that year, mirroring the national chill as rights teetered on legislative ledges. Robert's schedule ballooned, testifying in Lansing, moderating webinars from dawn till dusk, his body protesting with aches from old kneelings. Alex noticed first the way Robert rubbed his knees absent-mindedly, prescribing mandatory unplugged days enforced with playful threats of tickle torture. They escaped to the lake house, snow blanketing the pines like forgiveness, where Lila and Jordan built forts of laughter, their young love a beacon against encroaching dusk. There, in the firelit living room, Robert unearthed more of Margaret's journals, entries from her final months, painting a portrait of quiet awakening. Robbie's eyes shine like his father's did, before duty dimmed them. One read. Another prayed for strength to say I'm sorry, not to God, but to him. The words bridged gaps Robert hadn't known remained, prompting a pilgrimage to her grave, shovel in hand to clear winter's weight, kneeling in the crunch of snow, not penance, but piety, traced her name etched in granite, whispering, "You thawed too, Mom. Thank you." Back in the city, the nonprofit hit a milestone, 10,000 youth served, celebrated with a gala in Alex's gallery, chandeliers casting prisms like the globe's light. Robert accepted an award, speech weaving personal thread to collective, from one boy's snow to a nation's storm. We rise by lifting each other. Toasts flowed, Lila beaming from the front row, Jordan sketching the scene on a napkin. Later, alone on the balcony overlooking the glittering loop, Alex pulled Robert into a slow dance. "Proud doesn't cover it," he said, breath warm against his ear. Their kiss tasted of champagne and longevity, a vow renewed in starlight. Spring brought renewal, but also reckoning. A letter arrived from Robert's estranged uncle, Margaret's brother, a holdout in fundamentalism who'd shunned her softening. "Heard about your work," it sneered. "Blood's thicker, but sin's stickier." The venom stirred old fires. But Robert responded not with ire, but invitation a visit to the lake house. Neutral ground. The man came, grizzled and guarded, meals tense with unspoken scripture. Over coffee, Robert shared the journals. Alex adding sketches of family trees branching queer and straight. Cracks appeared, the uncle's admission of a lost son to addiction. Regrets mirroring Margaret's. No miracles, but a seed-planted dialogue over division. Lila's high school graduation was a triumph. Cap tossed skyward amid cheers. Jordan's ring glinting on her finger, a promise ring. Simple silver. Robert walked her across the makeshift stage at home. Words choking, "You've got worlds in you. Kid." Chase them fearless. Tears flowed freely. Alex capturing photos that would adorn future walls. That night, family dinner extended into dawn. Stories circling like comets, Margaret's hidden sketches discovered in the attic. Amateur but ardent, hinting at the artist she might have been. Summer swelled with travels, a road trip to D.C. for pride marches. Lila marching arm in arm with elders who'd paved paths. A quiet anniversary in California. Surfing lessons from Alex's kin. Waves washing away residual salts. Robert surfed tentatively. Board slicing blue. Emerging sputtering but exhilarated, a metaphor lived. Evenings on the beach. Bonfires crackling. They spoke of legacies, endowing a chair at a local college for queer studies. Perhaps. Or writing a memoir to echo Baldwin's truths. Autumn returned with a whisper of challenge, a health scare for Alex. A routine scan revealing shadows that proved benign but shook foundations. Hospital waits blurred into vigils reversed. Robert the anchor now. Hand clasped through beeps and bulletins. "Your turn to thaw me." Alex joked weakly. But his eyes held fear. Robert kissed away. Recovery was slow. Walks in the park rebuilding strength. Lila's care packages of comics and cookies, a daughter's devotion. It bonded them tighter. Love's resilience, a muscle flexed in crisis. As leaves fell, Robert stood at the lake's edge again. Globe in palm. Reflecting on the cold gift's evolution from retribution to relic of grace. His life. A testament to America's contradictions, bigotries, thawed by persistence. Romances forged in defiance affirmed that humanity's core was malleable. Warmed by empathy's steady flame. In the heartland's hush. Where winters test and springs affirm. Robert embraced the narrative's close, not an end, but an invitation to keep writing. One thought hard at a time. The scare lingered like a low hum. Prompting shifts, more family game nights. Less late meetings. Alex trading gallery deadlines for pottery classes. Hands in clay finding zen. Robert joined him. Fingers clumsy on wheels. Laughter echoing in the studio as lopsided bowls emerged. Symbols of imperfection embraced. Lila. Off to college in Ann Arbor. Video called weekly. Her dorm room a riot of posters and plants. Jordan visiting with tales of road trips and revelations. "Miss you, but loving this," she'd say. And Robert's pride swelled. A father's quiet joy. Public life ramped up. Robert keynoting at national conferences. His Buka memoir titled Thawing the Neil climbing bestseller lists. Pages pulsing with raw emotion and hard-won wisdom. Tours took him cross-country. From New York lofts to Texas barns. Audiences diverse and hungry. Rural teens clutching copies like lifelines. Elders nodding in recognition. One night in Atlanta. A young man approached post-reading. Voice trembling. "Your snow. It's my church basement. Thank you for standing so I can." Robert hugged him. Tears mingling. The human web tightening. Alex's recovery inspired a new exhibit, Resilient Forms. Sculptures of intertwined figures rising from abstract ice. Critics hailing it as a queer odyssey in bronze. The opening drew celebrities and locals alike. Lila flying home to cut the ribbon. Her speech a poetic punch. "Dad's story taught me love's not fragile, it's the forge." Flashbulbs popped. But Robert's eyes stayed on his family. The true spotlight. Winter whispered in with grace. Holiday cards from the nonprofit's reach depicting global Thasiouth in India. Elders in Brazil. At the lake house, they hosted a solstice gathering. Friends old and new around a roaring fire. Mores sticky with sweetness. Carols twisted queer with campy flair. Margaret's globe centered the table, catching flames in rainbow refractions. Toasts circled, to knees that bend but don't break. To loves that endure every season. Spring bloomed with Lila's engagement announcement, a backyard barbecue where Jordan proposed with a ring handmade by Alex. Sapphires echoing hazel eyes. Robert walked Lila down an aisle of wildflowers at their intimate wedding, vowing in his toast, "May your winters be shared, your thaws triumphant." Tears and dances followed. The night a tapestry of joy woven from threads of trial. Aged 50, Robert felt the year's gift, perspective sharpened like lake ice under sun. The nonprofit evolved into a foundation. Grants flowing to intersectional causes, trans youth in Appalachia. By elders in the Southwest. He mentored a new generation, stepping back to advise. His energy redirected to home, gardening with Alex. Raised beds bursting with tomatoes and tenderness. Story hours for neighborhood kids. Lila assisting with dramatic readings. One June dawn. A call from the uncle Margaret's brother crackled through. "I'm coming out. Late. But your books, why?" Robert's heart leaped. Arranging a visit where beers loosened tongues. Admissions flowed like spring runoff. No perfection, but progressive family fractal mending. As summer peaked, Robert revisited the ranch house driveway. Now his snow long melted to memory. Kneeling in grass, he buried a time capsule, journals, a globe shard, letters of love. For the boy who rose, he inscribed. Alex found him there, pulling him up with a grin. Our gift to tomorrow. In America's ever-shifting landscape, where freedom's flux and frost recur, Robert's arc illuminated the power of narrative not to erase cold, but to warm through it. His life, a beacon from meal to kinship, whispered that redemption waits in every outstretched hand, ready to thaw the world one heart at a time. The time capsule's burial marked a pivot. Robert embracing semi-retirement with the zeal of reinvention. Mornings began with yoga on the deck. Alex joining in downward dogs that dissolved into giggles. Afternoons wandered farmers' markets. Baskets heavy with heirlooms and herbs. Lila and Jordan settled nearby. Their starter home a haven of houseplants and half-written novels. Baby announcements arriving via ultrasound photo, a grandchild on the horizon. Tiny heartbeat echoing futures bright. Grandparenthood arrived with Alara, a squalling bundle of dark curls and fierce grips. Her cries a symphony Robert never tired of. Rocking her in the nursery glider, he sang lullabies laced with Baldwin quotes. Alex sketching her sleepy portraits for the wall. She's got the whole world's fight in her, Lila said, exhausted but ecstatic. Jordan brewing endless teas. Family-swelled barbecues sprawling across backyards. Alara's first steps chased by cheers. Holidays a chorus of chaos and connection. Public ripples persisted. Robert guesting on podcasts dissecting queerness in faith spaces. His calm authority disarming skeptics. A documentary crew followed for months, capturing lake house lore and city advocacy. Premiering to acclaim at Sundance. Not just survival, critics noted, but symphony. Royalties funded scholarships. Cycles of giving unbroken. Alex's health stabilized, but they adopted rituals, annual checkups celebrated with spa days. Vulnerability voiced over vintage wine. Intimacy evolved to tender territories, shared baths scented with lavender. Hands mapping familiar landscapes with reverence. Still my favorite thaw, Alex quipped, drawing Robert close. Their laughter a private rebellion. Winters at the lake house became Alara's wonderland. Snow forts kingdoms she ruled with mittened fist. Robert kneeling to build alongside. Knees protesting, but spirit soaring. Stories by the fire wove Margaret in gently, Grandma learned late. But loved deep, Ilara's eyes wide. Absorbing lineage's layers. Spring brought a letter from a Traverse City teen. Inspired by the foundation, your snow story. It's mine now? Thanks for the map out. Robert replied personally. Enclosing a globe replica. The chain continuing. Community events Burgeoned Pride parades with floats honoring thaws. Panels blending generations. Lila moderating with poise born of privilege earned. A health hiccup for Robert arthritic flair in those old knees prompted physical therapy laced with humor. Alex's cheerleader with ice packs and innuendos. Kneeling's overrated anyway. He teased. Massages turning amorous. Recovery reaffirmed resilience. Robert emerging stronger. Advocating for elder queer care with renewed fire. Summer solstice gatherings grew legendary. Bonfires beckoning kin from afar. Toasts to Margaret's memory evolving. To the woman who knelt too. In her way. Ilara, toddling now, danced barefoot. Her joy a distillation of all that came before. Autumn's harvest yielded a new project, co-authoring a children's book with Lila. The Boy and the Snow Heart. Illustrations by Alex, a tale of a lad frozen by fear. Thawed by a friend's hand. Ending in communal warmth. Readings at schools drew tears and hugs. Ilara, helping, turned pages with chubby fingers. As leaves turned, Robert reflected at the lake. Globe in hand. Its scene now joined by etched figures. Alex. Lila. Ilara family fractal. The cold gift. Birthed in pain. Had bloomed into boundless benevolence. A legacy proving love's alchemy, turning winter's bite to spring's embrace. In the American mosaic. Fractured yet fertile. Robert's narrative into Rita Clarion that from every kneel rises a stand. From every freeze a flourish. Hearts forever linked in the grand. Thawing dance. Ilara's third birthday dawned golden. The backyard festooned with balloons bobbing like dreams. Cake smeared across tiny cheeks as family encircled her in song. Robert hoisted her onto shoulders. Her giggles a melody overriding any ache. Alex snapping photos with the vintage camera that captured their own youth. Lila and Jordan. Parents now with a rhythm honed by sleep-deprived nights. Exchanged glances of weary Wonderlove's labor manifest in milestone cheers. Post-party cleanup unearthed a forgotten journal page from Margaret. Slipped into a drawer. If I could redo the snow, I'd kneel with him. Robert framed it quietly. Hanging it in the nursery beside Ilara's crib. A whisper of ancestry's arc. The gesture rippled, prompting a family history project video interviews with aunts, uncles, even the reformed brother. Stories stitched into a digital quilt for Ilara's future. Public engagements tapered. Robert favoring intimate keynotes at rural libraries, where accents thickened and faces echoed his boyhood. One evening in a Wisconsin barn, amid hay bales and harvest moon, a farmer's son confessed his crush. Robert's counsel simple, own it gentle, love it fierce. The hug exchange there felt like closing circuits long open. Alex's gallery expanded to a heartland outpost in Grand Rapids. Bridging urban art with rural roots exhibits featuring queer creators from flyover fields. Opening nights alive with fiddles and fervor. Robert curated a wing on personal thaws. Margaret's sketches centerpiece. Titled Late Blooms. Visitors lingered. Notes in the guest book murmuring miracles. Grandparent duties deepened Joy Ilara's preschool plays. Robert as tree in the giving tree. Branches of arms enveloping her post-curtain call. Park picnics where Alex taught kite flying. Tails streaming rainbows against blue. Health rituals persisted. Joint checkups a date night of sorts. Doctors praising their proactive pact. Winter wrapped gentle that year. Lake House snow a playground of sleds and cocoa. Alara's mittens lost in drifts. Her squeals echoing forgiveness. By firelight. Robert read The Boy and the Snow Heart. Voice modulating drama. Alara's head on his knee. Absorbing the moral, cold passes. Connection abides. Spring unfurled collaborations, a podcast with Lila interviewing survivors. Episodes dissecting faith's fractures and fixes. Downloads surging with shared stories. Jordan's novel debuted. Dedication to the thaws that taught me tenderness. Book tour stops sinking with family jaunts. Summer scorched with activism's embers. Rights rallies reigniting as bills loomed. Robert testified remotely. Knees propped. Words weighted. We've knelt enough. Now we stand for all. Victory slim but sweet. A temporary truce in the fray. Autumn's equinox brought Alara's first day of kindergarten. Backpack oversized. Robert's throat tight walking her in. Alex filming through misty eyes. Big girl adventures. She declared. Hugging fierce before dashing off. The empty nest echo prompted renewal. Robert and Alex enrolling in dance classes. Tango steps sinking souls. Spins shedding years. A letter from the Wisconsin boy arrived. Came out. Families thawing. Slow but sure. Your map worked. Enclosed. A handmade keychain snowflake etched with thanks. Robert pinned it to his bag. Talisman for travels. Holiday lights twinkled. Traditions evolved. Alara's queer Christmas with elf ears on everyone. Gifts wrapped in stories. A locket for Lila with Margaret's photo. A canvas for Jordan of intertwined hands. Toasts circled deeper, to knees that carried us. Hearts that healed us. As snow dusted again, Robert knelt in the driveway, not in memory's grip, but to plant bulbs. Alex beside with trowel. Alara patting soil. Flowers from cold. She observed. Profound in pint-sized wisdom. The cold gift. Once conceptual, now corporeal in every bloom. Every bond a bequest of beauty from bitterness transmuted. America's narrative. Turbulent tapestry. Found in Robert's life a thread of tenacity, from solitary freeze to communal flame. Proving each human tale, when shared, warms the whole. Alara's kindergarten tales filled evening's finger paint masterpieces. Playground packs her world, expanding concentric from family core. Robert volunteered as reader. Voice animating adventures to wide-eyed circles. Slipping in subtle lessons of kindness across differences. Alex joined for art days. Demonstrating thaw paintings, watercolors bleeding from blue to gold. Metaphors Alara grasped with gluey fingers. The foundation marked 20 years. Gala a spectacle in Alex's flagship gallery, holographic projections of impact stats. Testimonials from grantees, now givers. Robert's speech. Brief but blazing. From one kneel to thousands standing weary, the proof love legislates itself. Alara, in frilly dress, presented a tiny globe to a honoree. Her lisp charming the room. Personal milestones layered. Robert's 55th. Celebrated with a surprise surf trip to California. Alex's kin hosting bonfires where waves crashed applause. Boards wobbled but held. Robert riding a swell to shore. Salt stung and soaring echo of youth reclaimed. Evenings. Stargazing with telescopes borrowed from a cousin. Constellations naming their constellations. Lila's star for motherhood. Jordan's for verse. Alara's twinkling mischief. Health's hum stayed harmonious. Annuals affirming vitality. Though Robert adopted a cane for bad days, elegant ebony. Carved with snowflakes by a grantee artisan. Kneeling's history. He quipped. Alex retorting. Strutting snow. Their dance classes progressed to salsa nights at local clubs. Hips swaying syncopated. Eyes locking across crowded floors like first meets. Lila's second child arrived autumnal. A boy named Theo. Robert cradling him first. Tears tracing. Welcome, little thaw. Nursery rhymes now duolingual. Jordan's heritage infusing Spanish lullabies. Family a babble of belonging. Grandkids chaos Alara bossing Theo's bottle feeds filled homes with din divine. Winter's white mantle muffled worries. Lake house a cocoon of cocoa and carols. Alara's snow angel army guarding the door. Robert shared Margaret's full journals with her. Age-gated, Grandma had hard snows too, but learned to shovel. Alara nodded solemn, drawing a heart around the tail. Spring seminars beckoned. Robert guest lecturing at universities. Students probing, how do you forgive the unfathomable? His answer, one honest talk. One shared tear. Time's the real gift. Q&S stretched. Bonds forming with questioners who saw kin in his candor. Summer's heatwave hosted a foundation retreat, teens from Heartland hamlets bonding over bonfires. Robert facilitating circles where stories spilled, church exiles. Family fractures. One evening, a girl gifted him a bracelet woven from yarn-dyed rainbows for the boy who knelt first. He wore it always. Threads of thanks. Autumn equinox aligned with Theo's baptism, not church, but lakeside. Water symbolic. Family encircling as Jordan recited poetry over splashes. Laughter lapped waves. Alara splashing Theo's toes. Unity unscripted. Holiday hush brought reflection. Robert compiling a thaw testament, letters to each loved one. Sealed for future opens. Words of pride and passage. Alex's peaked early. Tear-blotted, you melted me eternal. Snow fell soft as year's end. Robert at the mantle. Globe glowing. Family photos orbiting like planets. The cold gift. Crystallized in memory. Had proliferated in grants given. Books birthed. Heart's Helida cascade proving pain's potential for poetry. In America's grand. Groaning orchestra dissonance and harmony entwined. Robert's symphony swelled, from frozen solo to choral crescendo, affirming every soul's capacity to conduct its own thaw, composing a world warmer. Wilder, wholly human.